Brain health issues, the past is over. 2024. Brain issues I have recovered from, caused by allergies. There were several physical incidents when I was a child that caused some issues. A couple of incidents that did minor damage to my neck were a concern. Then there was the recently confessed to me knowledge that my food was poisoned regularly starting the age of 13, with nothing short of powdered nuclear waste. Strontium waste was the name they used to be precise, a strange green color. Apparently, they even took it to restaurants when we sat down for meals and asked them to add it to mine when it was cooked, as if a health supplement. I was too embarrassed to speak to the staff about myself. They always ordered something different to me. Apparently, their goal was to make all my teeth and hair fall out by the time I was in my mid-20s, the motive being I looked too much like my great-great-great-grandfather Kaiser Wilhelm I when I was a child. They decided that after a visiting European tour group checked me out one day. As if doing that sort of thing was not unusual when offered to be sent the waste in the mail, to add a tablespoon to each prepared meal, if you had a target and got paid afterwards. You know. Waiting for everyone to die in 1993 stuff. Terrorism against me from a young age was the other factor. Copious amounts of it from very young. I was drowned the day I was born by a crazy Yugoslav bred with Einstein sperm, for example. Them beginning to poison me with it in at least one meal a day was why they tooled me up and had me try soccer, association football. I was very small back then as I hadn't started my double big statured growth spurt. They bought me the equipment, registered me, signed me up, and started taking me to matches. Most if not all the games I played in were actually against people 2 to 4 years older than me. I was under 14's age in the under 16s, sometimes the odd game thrown in with under 18s. I got told a few times I was quite good for someone my age who only came up to their hip. If I went for the ball correctly, other children suddenly seemed to forget they weren't allowed to use their hands and stopped it getting to me. There was no out loud scream like a stop him. He's gonna do that properly, though. It was a waste of time. They were only doing it hoping they'd see me fall to pieces like a puppet losing its ligaments all at once in an innocuous incident during training or play. So, they dosed up my food and took me to training and games. One cold morning I wasn't feeling well and was taken to training where boys 2 years older than me seemed weirdly enthusiastic about me arriving. The thing claiming to be my mother looked like today was the day they would scrape me up and carry me away. I stayed in the car and quit. I started to develop some minor brain issues during high school, secondary school. My physical brain output started to decrease as I got into late high school. I suppose the problem developing caused some of my minor strange behavior at school. By the time I was in my early 20s I had developed some minor blockages in my brain, which caused pools of brain fluid to develop. They seeped through eventually with a very slow flow, by built-up residual pressure that shouldn't have been there. I got regular headaches in my teenage years. The most frustrating effect of that was a tendency to have difficulty accessing my memories, particularly the longer-term ones. I became less and less talkative for many reasons in my 20s, the brain problems being one of them. People started to attempt to take advantage of my memory recall issues by demanding I let them make up stories, and vehemently suggested I make like they were my real memories. As if it was helping me. Fake History Channel applied in daily life, even. It ended up a fully lunatic routine of pretending they could supply me with any fictional memory they wanted, and I would play along just to make like I had memories I could access. Combine that with them thinking it was almost magic caused by the poisoned food, and it was very ugly. It was only an access issue though. My memories all got stored fine, usually in full detail. I only had trouble recalling them. It was very frustrating. Particularly regarding incidents where my semen was stolen when I was unconscious, 1988 when I was 16, and in a deep too much anesthetic coma, in 1996. The former 1988 incident was a particular focus for them. The first babies born without consent to my stolen sperm, in Yugoslavia, in some cases, were conceived illegally the night I was assaulted when unconscious, and some of it ended up in frozen storage illegally for hundreds more afterwards. I consented to none of them, and there was no sexual encounters involved. I was assaulted when found unconscious outdoors, using an artificial erection drug I was forced to swallow with the hold the nose and mouth closed thing. Then left under a vehicle so that if the driver didn't see me and tried to drive away, I would be run over by the wheels over the head and legs. I was then found by some school acquaintances who heard me crying when I woke up. I was crying because I was under a car staring at a muffler when I woke up, had been drugged and sexually assaulted, and they hadn't put my penis away and done up my fly. They assumed I had possibly fainted when trying to take a leak. I was put to bed where I was supposed to be staying the night. The Truman Show-style perverts watching live illegally who saw the whole thing didn't seem to deter the people involved trying to make out the children conceived were sort of with consent in a three-way sexual act. I am homosexual. They made up a story about me having a three-way bisexual sexual encounter with a male-female bisexual couple when drunk at 16, where they demanded I pretend I was watching them have sex and was asked for my semen by the female to use as lubricant. They made like I had to pretend I was masturbating watching them have sex in a room with them, ejaculated into her hands on request, she used it as lubricant on her boyfriend's penis in front of a video camera, and I was just out of shot for the whole thing. As if it would make the children conceived illegally with my stolen semen eligible to claim from my royal family estate if I played along, and they got to pretend it was sort of with consent. The female involved even kept her real videotape of her sex with her boyfriend using my stolen sperm as lubricant. That happened in a house I have never been into. She got my stolen semen from another female that assaulted me. The lubricant lunatic started pretending having the videotape with her, which I wasn't in because I wasn't there, would make her Queen of Germany, carrying it around in her handbag. Pretending if I play along with the fictional version, they will unpack the bags they packed in the 80s just in case they stole property off me in one of my Hohenzollern properties in Europe. They still do. They probably still have them packed and ready for nothing. They have been at it over 35 years. The worse my brain issues got, the harder they pushed and terrorized to try to make me pretend their fictional story was what happened, as if I had no memory of it at all and was easily able to be given false memory suggestions. But I was only 16 then. The memory recall issues only started really happening in my 20s. That fake history since the camera was invented, lose the plot in propaganda, forget the timeline of cause and effect thing. The male she had sex with me not there, then got a job impregnating females using my stolen sperm by thawing it out and putting on his penis and inserting it in females who agreed. Like it was an entertainment program, always recorded and edited to look like a TV show, as if inspired by the first videotape made when I was still unconscious outdoors. They settled on trying to make me pretend to be bisexual and pretend the three of us were in love, and whenever he got another female pregnant with my thawed-out sperm from 1988, I was there each time and ejaculated for him. Repulsive. They are still trying to make me play along with that one, now. Literally. Despite their own videotape and the illegal satellite images of what really happened. At one stage they even re-recorded a fictional version using body doubles to make me look like I was there and participated. The female involved in the videotape with me not there incident was the mother of a school acquaintance of mine in the same year as me at high school when I was 16. That school acquaintance was 17 at the time. Her mother had to be over 18 when she was born. 17 plus 9 months plus 18 is around 36. If her mother was in her early 20s when she was born, then she was around 40 when she got pregnant with my stolen sperm in October 1988. That would make her around mid-70s in age in 2024. Possibly pushing or over 80. Some of them are seriously trying to make me find her in whatever aged care facility or situation she is in, if applicable, introduce myself, and pretend she has been my secret girlfriend starting when I was 16, when she got pregnant with my stolen sperm in front of her video recorder. If they talk to her they tend to forget she is, like, 80 or something. I guess Janet Podolsky pretending to be Eva Braun fans are where she agreed to a job posing for images they could use to fake her being Kaiser Adolf's secret fiancé and girlfriend back to when she was 16 and got pregnant with his stolen sperm. Loved the idea. Still do. I am not finding the aged care facility she is in, if applicable, and introducing myself after getting her name. I don't care if they never roll their eyes back to the front again. They say, Brian, where is your sense of organized crime? Eva Cinderella come Pretty Woman. She's probably about 80. No way, any age. That demand, that has been sledgehammer subliminally sprayed at me, without a confrontation of any sort since the 90s, is complicated and exacerbated by the repulsive Berlin Wall coming down in 1989. It almost mysteriously came down suddenly, and it just happened to be very shortly after the firstborn child to my stolen sperm was born in Yugoslavia. Serbia to be exact, in around April 1989. Some of the lunatics that erected it starting the day after Kaiser Adolf took diplomatic asylum in Italy on the 12th of August, 1961, said it would only come down if he paid an Italian prostitute for sex and provided proof he ejaculated in her vagina, despite him being homosexual. That he had to have the proof, her name, address, date of birth, contact details and a photo or film of some kind. Then be found waiting for a car to pick him up and take him back to Germany for a press conference with a packed suitcase. Every time they sent an Italian prostitute to hang around near him, they checked to see if he was sitting there with a suitcase the following morning, whenever he stayed in what was his, now my, house in Italy between 1961 and 1978. I suppose they were pretending that was punishing him, for no valid reason, for them pretending Sadie Einstein's brat grew up in the other side of the bars outside his cell and they were waiting for it to be delivered to Berlin until his escape in 1959. They started pretending I had to do the same and bang an Italian prostitute etc. when he died in 1982 without having done it himself. If the Berlin Wall only came down, against the lunatic's own word or vow about the only way it would come down, because the firstborn baby to my stolen sperm was born in Yugoslavia in 1989, then I don't have to pretend I had sex with the bitch who gave birth to it. I did not have sex with a part Italian woman who may have done prostitution when I was 16, even if they pretend that is why the wall came down. The videotaped lady was not the one who had the firstborn child to my stolen sperm in Serbia, who was irrelevant to my royal family anyway. I am not making them look like retrospective German liars for 28 years by refusing to pretend I had sex with her on the wall coming down issue. By the time I was in my mid-20s I was considered mildly partly intellectually disabled by the myriad of not supportive people around me pretending to be friends and family. I was given the nickname Blood Nut by lunatics seeming to have a full-time hobby of stalking me in their ample spare time. It was a vague reference to my red hair, but more a reference to the obvious pools of fluid that had developed in my brain. Plenty of laughs and the attitude I was an easy target. I could be communicated to fine. I sometimes had difficulty being heard or understood when I tried to communicate back. I took everything coming my way and, though all stored properly in my memories, widescreen. By my late 20s it had been a real concern for some time. I could feel pressure inside my brain when agitated, and the pressure caused the brain cell receptors not to line up properly with the emitters in the surrounding area. I lost partial movement in my left arm, exacerbating a childhood abuse injury, and then lost feeling in the palm of my left hand, which I only recently regained in 2021. I had headache issues in my teens. I started getting bad headaches in my late teens and early 20s. Serious, debilitating, excruciatingly painful 24 to 48-hour headaches were not unusual in my 20s. Incidents where I was literally writhing around making quiet noises of being in severe pain. Intensely painful. I was taken to hospital several times to emergency. I received pain-killing injections a couple of times, but didn't like the effects. And it didn't really work. The combination of the actual physical issue, the allergies I didn't know about, the poisoned food, and the terrorism made a few incidents just absolutely excruciatingly painful for 12 to 14 hours plus at a time with writhing and whimpering noises. I would literally lay down and hold my head and roll around. And those ones happened very suddenly. Like a switch being flicked on. By then the stalkers, acting the part of friends and family, had decided my brain could pop any minute in a serious stroke, aneurysm, or embolism. They decided they wanted to watch and took turns trying to agitate me to see if I would pop in front of them, like a competition to see who would do something that caused the pop. I did have Tetris though. The other annoying thing they did was try to take advantage of the idea that others had to pass on what I wanted to communicate in some way, and they should get the credit for my thoughts, or get to add stuff or misdescribe my thoughts if they wanted. All I could do was use my very well-developed observation skills. I was always described as having amazing powers of observation from a very young age. I will say that diligently truthful ancestry memory histories from Webb's, a Hohenzollern surnamed Hitler, and a Djugashvili nicknamed Stalin helped a lot. I was not as distracted as others by fake historical information. It gave me intellectual space. I was really observant and assumed it was really important. By my 30s they were in a dance until we all drop, but you first, blood nut, routine mode 24/7. I always had headache issues, but not as bad or as frequent, and that feeling of pressure in my brain caused by fluid and blockages. But not blood fluid, brain fluid. The make him pop so we can watch thing became part of their daily routine. They started picturing me falling to the floor twitching after raising my voice at them and returning in a wheelchair unable to talk properly with a giggle. Even developed a manual on how to annoy me to try to make it pop in their spare time. I learned to manage it, but it wasn't easy. There were always really bad days where someone would always look at me and think he thinks it might pop today. Where I had a really worried and distracted look on my face. I took photos of myself a few times when I was having a bad day, feeling like a balloon had been inflated in my brain and I could feel my own pulse inside my own brain with a thudding feeling. Copious color did help. When my father Kevin died in 2004 it was devastating and I just couldn't tolerate any of them anymore. I had to get away from them and avoid them as much as possible. They went to evil terrorist party time town on me when he was dying, and every second of it was intensely aggravating and extremely offensive. Their excuse was that they didn't really mean to be so offensive, but they were just trying to make me pop and have a stroke whilst raising my voice in anger at them. If they weren't trying to do that, they wouldn't have been so offensive about it. A 45 to 50 kilogram, small, granddaughter of a neo-Nazi convicted at Nuremberg with a serious drug problem, illegally pretending to be my older sister, deciding she had put in the prep work and could probably physically assault me and scratch my eyes out in my grief and bad health in the hospital when Dad was in palliative care and I was emotionally stressed out, was the end. I was in the elevator when she tried to jump me. I put my hand gently on her sternum and pushed her backwards slowly so the doors of the elevator wouldn't squish her when they closed, saying, "Get out of the lift." I did it as gently as I possibly could. Then braced myself when the doors started closing, in case she imitated an alien off the Aliens movie or something and tried to pop through the doors and got hurt. My mother Judith never became a Duchess of Austria or a Lady of Hungary because she lost the divorce to my father in the late 1970s, before he became a Duke and Lord of the Habsburgs in the 1980s. She was excluded from any property or personal assets from my father Duke and Lord Kevin's estates when he won the divorce. She died in 2018 and I was her only legitimate descendant at the time. I actually did have a reputation for having a temper, but only yelling mainly when it did come out. And it did after my dad died and I became a Duke and Lord of Austria and Hungary respectively. They immediately went into pretending we are going to steal everything off a royal mode. They stole my family home and belongings from the estate, and all but 20k of my money. They illegally signed my family home over to a person bred with Einstein's sperm who had been squatting in my family home as the boyfriend of neo-Nazi Ricky O'Shea's granddaughter, who was pretending to be my older sister. They did it so they could finally say they stole land and a building off a royal Habsburg, me, and gave it illegally to an Einstein. As if the culmination of 100 years organized crime works since the evil creep Einstein targeted the Habsburg dynasty prior to World War I for no valid reason. My very humble little family home in Yarragon, the culmination of 100 years organized crime work. After what they tried to steal from the Habsburg, Romanov, and Hohenzollern estates, that is now all mine, were applicable before and after I was born. A triumph. They also did it to pretend the female who pretended to be my mother after my dad died could steal Habsburg royal family assets I inherited off my father Duke and Lord Kevin Webb the Habsburg, because she pretended to be still married to him when he died and be his grieving widow. With bulk hidden cameras and listening devices hidden to record it all when I was around. They then pretended he left everything to her so she could pretend she was a widowed duchess and lady, whoever she was, and she packed her bags to pretend to move to Vienna or Budapest. Still has them packed, whoever she is. Absolutely insane. My father Kevin divorced my mother in the late 1970s before he became a duke and lord when his father died in the 80s, and she was excluded from any property or personal belongings he owned in the divorce in the 1970s. Russia have all the relevant documents detailing it all, including the correct document stating I was sole beneficiary of all my father's estates, excluding around 50k cash. They needed them for their investigation into me being the only legitimate grandchild of Ioseb Djugashvili, Stalin, who was the only surviving child of the last monarch of Russia to have children. I still haven't received my Djugashvili estate I inherited in 1981, despite court orders confirming it is legitimately mine and cannot be confiscated, beyond appeal in Russia. I had a prolonged temper control incident where I raised my voice a lot, almost daily, but managed to say constructive things when I did in 2008. It eventually degraded to me repeatedly using a four-letter word starting with C over and over again. And the people who had been so tolerant had enough, and I had to move. I moved in early 2009, and it's 15 years at that address since. It was only under 2 kilometers though, the move. It all affected my ability to work, and I was unnecessarily unemployed a lot due to the health issues. At one stage in 2006 I had 6 months or more of constant medical certificates. I thought I was a goner. Even after factoring in quitting smoking in 2004. Things improved a little in the brain, but I developed heart palpitation issues afterwards. I had to try to stay calm after, because if I didn't, getting agitated caused an obvious thumping in the chest. So they added, he might have a heart attack, yay, to the list. All it took was a little adrenaline and my heart started overdoing it. In 2010 I gave a quiet celebration yell after a 1-point win by Street Kilda FC in the quarter-final of the NAB Cup at Dockland Stadium. I then turned to heart-palpitating jelly and went purple, starting to gasp for air. It was oh no, might have to give this a miss for a while thing. I then took up an experimental gluten-free diet the week after that game after reading up on symptoms. It wasn't really the problem, but my 10-year-long heart palpitation issues were gone within 2 weeks. Never missed a proverbial beat seriously since. Just as I started enjoying the benefits of that diet change, I got targeted for more terrorism. I was only 62 kilograms when I went into hospital for an operation in 1996 to have my teeth removed and replaced with dentures. Both the weight problem and the teeth being caused by the poisoning of my food since I was 13. In the 2000s I was also ballooning in weight for the first time in my life, measured at a surprisingly heavy 98 kilograms at the doctor. The time away preparing my own meals had caused my weight to get near the 100 kilogram mark. I was asked to jump on the scales and looked at the scales towards the 80 kilogram area thinking, I have put on quite a bit of weight. And the needle flung past my eyes and the doctor said 98 kilograms. After some better health and recovery, in 2016 I discovered I am allergic to onion for the first time in my life. It was strange time, well before Germany started the succession procedure to me, for real. I had a visitor at the charity shop I was working at in Traralgon. The Salvation Army shop was where I was volunteering. The Salvation Army was founded by Kaiser Adolf's older ineligible brother Ernst Rome after World War I. My elderly mother Judith dropped in to see how much I looked like Adolf. I was asked to take donations off her in plastic bags hanging from her hands. She was still hunched over when standing up due to the zipper they put in her to harvest her overthrew after she was divorced by my father. I very carefully made firm hooks out of my fingers and managed to place them under the handles of the bags without touching her, lifted them up, pulled them towards me and relaxed again, with my chin firmly in the air. Never touched her skin. She left and got in her car, and I never saw her again. I took up an onion-free diet and started to feel better, and was around the 100 kilogram mark, struggling with the weight, including a broken wrist bone. When the onion started to clear out of me, I started feeling blockages in my brain starting to shift from their usual place in 2016. It was a calm accepting, okay, these are going to clear, or I'm going to have a stroke. I said a few quiet goodbyes, just in case. I ended up lying in bed knowing they were going to move. Laying there feeling them start to work loose, thinking this is one or the other, and there is no in between. I started panting with my face screwed up feeling them shifting and pressure releasing for the first time since I was in my 20s. When they did shift, I made prolonged loud worried yelping and moaning noises, then yelled a very loud nervous noise, and then decided the best thing to do was go to sleep. When I woke up, I sat down on a chair and started making noises like an upset teenager wanting their dad. I went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and there was a pool of fluid bulging out of my gums at the front of my top gums. I tried to pinch it to pop it open as it was annoying, and when it did fluid spurted into my hand in the basin, and a small ball of what looked like onion the size of a split pea landed in my hand. My brain started healing immediately, and it was rapidly for a while. Then those hard-to-access memories started to become accessible again after decades, with work. They were all still there. And some of them had to be dealt with when they resurfaced. It was somewhat traumatic at times. The new me who is not going to pop in the brain appeared in 2017. Much more relaxed and much more annoyed. Those let's watch him pop types just refused to accept there was nothing left to try to make go pop anymore, and still haven't. They still talk to me as if a catastrophic stroke is seconds away, and I get a headache whenever they try to cause one. The recovery process was really quite stimulating and relaxing, but quite traumatic. I took interest in things I had not bothered with due to the brain issues beforehand, except reviewing German reunification in 1990 to 91. Ugh. And started seriously comparing myself to my royal ancestors for the first time since I was a teenager. I had never really visually compared myself to them seriously, apart from Kaiser Adolf, my whole life. That was partly due to Germany's apathy to the situation since 1972. I was quite amazed at the details in my looks compared to my Hohenzollern predecessors. Hair for hair likeness and the beard for one. Then I discovered I am allergic to carrot, after giving up beetroot as not edible at all. I came to the conclusion it was allergy to carrot that ruined Kaiser Frederick IV's eyesight. The hot wax he sealed official documents with had bulk carrot coloring in it. He steamed his face, eyes, and lungs with it nearly every day. He did not discover he was allergic to it until he retired to Gippsland in 1890. I had never even thought about it. When it cleared, which was traumatic and smelly, it turned out to be what had glued all the gluten into me when I was younger. When the process was well underway, I suddenly got better use of my left arm and hand back, and regained feeling in my left palm whilst at work in 2021. I went to move my left arm and it responded much more quickly than usual. Then I felt a tingling sensation in the palm of my left hand and got feeling back. I immediately got dizzy whenever I touched anything with my left hand afterwards, for the next 6 months. I used to also get very, very hot at night in bed. Sometimes up to over 55 or 60 degrees Celsius when trying to sleep. Usually with inflamed lymph nodes under the armpits, in hindsight. I now recognize that was carrot allergy fever. When the carrot cleared enough out of my system for my lymph nodes under my armpits to clear, it happened really suddenly when I was really overheated in bed. I felt it, and my body temperature dropped to normal slowly over about 10 to 15 minutes, for the first time in literally years. And what a relief. The improvement from that was slower and more difficult to manage, and I got more annoyed by others talking to me as if it was pre-2010 health as it went. They still pretend I get headaches regularly, weekly or more, even severe ones, and have just kept doing the things that they did to make them worse when I used to get them. Even though mild headaches are very rare now. I then discovered I am allergic to bananas, and that is still in progress as of 2024. Someone yelling, "Don't touch that banana," every time I reached out for one, even though I'd been eating them regularly for breakfast, was really strange. I gave it a go and stopped eating them because, hey, what did I have to gain? I am feeling even better in some ways. A healthy 94 kilograms with multiple allergy recovery in progress. I have also partially recovered from being lame in my left leg since being attacked in hospital in 1996. I went into the public hospital to have my teeth removed and replaced with dentures under general anesthetic in October 1996. It was in a public hospital and was a seriously heinous act against me by dozens of perpetrators. I was given too much anesthetic, which left me in a coma-like state deeper than a brain surgery patient for around 24 hours. I was only supposed to be in hospital a maximum of 6 hours. Around 27 hours of footage was illegally filmed by 7 separate handheld JVC camcorders. If I mention it, certain government types get a little twitchy and start making like I am in trouble if I talk about it, because it was a public hospital and I had spent quite some time on a waiting list for the operation. Check sports history here for the corruption billboards about it, if you know how Australia operates. Footage of me being attacked in hospital by dozens of perpetrators whilst I was in a temporary coma was then cut to look like a short violent pornography movie by an AFL club in early 1997. Then released on DVD and must look appalling disgusting. They still try to talk people into thinking it was a pornography set shoot, where I agreed to pretend to be an unconscious hospital patient being violently assaulted for money whenever someone watches it or is told about it. Despite the fact that the edited version of the operation in hospital released by the violent perverts included all the real hospital details in the final cut. From the wall boards in the operating theatre next to the table, to the clipboard on the end of the operating table. They still try to talk people who have seen it or heard about it. The illegal DVD of me being assaulted during a general anesthetic operation in hospital cut to look like a violent pornography movie into harassing me as if I did something vile, then tell me to pretend I like the abuse because it makes me feel like a porn star. The hospital building was abandoned shortly afterwards, partially to cover up the assault on me and others. They have left the building there though, even though it is basically derelict. They are still pretending it is the only office space available in the place, specifically to give victims of assaults in it jobs to see what happens. I have been employed in it 3 times since. When they assumed they had probably killed me with too much anesthetic and I wouldn't regain consciousness, they decided to ring around and ask if anyone wanted themselves filmed assaulting me before I was pronounced dead. That decision was made after they had already filmed themselves stealing my sperm. They used the wall phone in the operating theatre to dial 0 and call out. They told everyone they rang that I would probably be pronounced dead later on, or would be in a coma, until someone pretending to be my upset mother switched the life support off weeks later. Then told them that they could come in, go past security, do anything they wanted to me, have it filmed with some photographs as a souvenir, then leave and it would be sent to them later on after they edited the footage. They made all the calls to each person they asked if they wanted to be filmed assaulting me from the phone in the operating theatre out to the general public exchange. All traceable on the phone records, with the people calling out, with me laying in a coma on the operating table nearby being filmed making the calls with audio. People who claimed to be family and friends at the time, who knew I was going to be assaulted if I went into the hospital for the operation, or even participated in the heinous act whilst I was in a coma on the operating table, just went about their business around me as if just checking out my new dentures and nothing evil had happened to me at all. I was supposed to be in hospital 6 hours, but it ended up being well over 24 hours, around 30 to be exact. They never bothered to tell me it wasn't only 6 hours to see if I seemed a day behind mentally so they could laugh at me later on. My left leg was always around 3 to 5 degrees Celsius cooler than my right between 1996 and 2018. A little swollen usually as well. After I stopped eating onions and my brain issues started to recover, I started trying to exercise a little more, and the object causing the blockage moved and lodged harder during 2018. Over a few weeks my leg went colder, pink, and started to swell up, to the fake joy of people stalking me at the time, thinking I might be about to have my identity stolen by a purpose-bred, part Greek imposter Romanov descended, part Qatari Arab, from Chinese Taipei, apparently. A small group of people came up with an idea to grab me if I collapsed and do a backyard amputation themselves, whilst pretending to be an ambulance and hospital crew, and started talking about it around me. As if they would film it and it would be worth serious money to them. I was in a similar situation to Kaiser Adolf after he was recovering properly from being nearly fatally wounded with a machine gun during World War I. They kept talking to him as if he was the severely traumatized Prince Imperial Adolf they secretly called Looney Bin after World War I, still recovering from his horrible wounds. Some never stopped afterwards, regardless of his obvious legendary influence for the good stuff. I was doing some casual stretching at my pod at work in a federal government call center, in the same building I was in hospital in 1996, exercising standing up on the phone at work. In reply to another repeat fictional remark about my second predecessor Kaiser Wilhelm II, I said, oh for f***'s sake, Wilhelm II was a homosexual childless, only child, and never got married in his lifetime, with muttered swearing afterwards. That is why the Kingdom of Prussia became permanently defunct when he died in 1941. Whilst exercising standing up at my desk, there was a loud crack in my knee, and blood flow suddenly returned down my leg to the base of my foot like a kinked hose being let kink. I started making strange moaning noises saying, that feels like circulation returning to my foot, ooh, that's nice and warm. Oh, my foot is going all tingly and warm. Oh, that's better. I genuinely thought it may have to be amputated in the mid-2010s. My foot immediately went back to a normal temperature within a few minutes, the same temperature as my right foot for the first time since the 90s. It has been a long slow recovery attempt. The recovery process from limited circulation in a limb and gangrene symptoms is well documented, unfortunately. I get around on it fine, but it still feels a little squishy at times. My legs and feet look massively better than they did 10 years ago. I thought I was a goner in 2006. The difference between then and now is so big, I can't really stop to wonder how much of a wreck I really was. Hopefully the no-banana diet will help even more. I do not get headaches anymore. They are extremely unusual. Even when people do things to me to try to bring one on or exacerbate one, I still don't get one at all. When I do get one, it is usually caused by an outside stimulus like fumes or something in food. There are none caused by incidental brain fluid and blockage problems anymore like they used to be. I have not had that balloon inflated inside my brain causing a felt pulse throb and tightness feeling since 2016. The receptors are all lined up with the emitters again. The glands cleared when I stopped eating carrot and my brain fluid was refreshed by the glands involved. Replaced with fresh stuff when I urinated a few times and it just smelled like pure brains. Those headaches were always exacerbated by what lunatics around me were doing to me anyway. What they still do now to try to bring one on or exacerbate one is what they were doing all along. Hideous. They have just kept going, even escalated the violent stuff, degrading their own brain and having lobotomies etc., whilst my brain health has gone suddenly the other way. Since we permanently parted ways, they have just kept pretending I get headaches almost daily. What they do to me now should mean I get them more frequently and am in excruciating pain if they do something like they used to. No matter how many times I explain to them that I don't get headaches at all anymore like I used to, they just keep pretending things are the way they were when I was in my 20s. So, they have sludged into a trough of similar behavior towards me as towards Kaiser Adolf between abdication to him whilst he was still in a post-traumatic stress disorder hospital in 1918 and him winning an election in 1933. He still could not walk properly or stand upright for long periods without putting his hip in a strange position due to his war wounds when he won election in 1933. He was slightly lame like that for life. Like they would not have a life routine without it and would be at a loss as to what to do. Excruciating in a different way, but boredom and fiduciary depravity. Make no mistakes about it, then Prince Imperial Adolf, abdicated to in 1918 based on incorrect medical advice whilst still in a serious trauma recovery hospital, was a twice combat decorated Triple Iron Cross recipient. He then recovered slowly in front of the German public's eyes through to becoming Chancellor. They watched his stuttering, limping, nervous and traumatized first attempts at speaking in small beer hall-sized venues in 1925, to explain what happened to him when he was missing between November 1923 and December 1924. He was illegally held as the only inmate of Landsberg prison at the time after the beer hall incident that caused the blood fun. He could literally barely talk and was using a walking stick in 1925. He went on to become something really special. All fueled by his older, ineligible brother, Ernst Röhm being a complete legend after being one of the founders of the Salvation Army charity after World War I. Ernst's uniforms after World War I were Salvation Army charity uniforms. He was not in the military after WW1. The photos of him were images of him with his charity volunteer army. And it was a full-sized small army, literally. Ernst was murdered just after Prince Imperial Adolf was elected Chancellor in 1933. Then Charles Manson was born in the USA in 1934 to hideously evil lunatic Albert Einstein and a New Zealand lunatic called Isabel Williams, aged 15. Williams went on to participate in mass genocide as a neo-Nazi in 1943, 44, and 45. Evilly mentored by Einstein all the way. She was found dead, made over by a Golden Globe award-winning film production crew to look like Kaiser Adolf in a bunker in Berlin in 1945. On top of a female called Janet Podolsky pretending to be Eva Braun. That isn't tennis, people. Fake history production is an industry of nonsense at best. Since modern computer-generated special effects, so is a large percentage of the daily news. Max Headroom, latex green screen and masked fake national leaders have not been unusual for decades. They should make Krusty the Clown look more really human, like the TV series Halo characters, and then the next president of somewhere. More realistic than what we get now. I do not have blockages or pools of fluid in my brain anymore since 2016. People still talk to me as if a stroke is imminent any second. If you have brain issues, try eliminating onion and or carrot from your diet, one at a time. Allergy to carrot causes loss of feeling, sometimes completely, in a patch of skin somewhere. In my case it was the palm of my left hand. There are other issues and it is really smelly when it clears. Allergy to onion causes brain degradation-like issues. It can also lead to minor blockages here and there and fluid buildup. Brain fluid replenishes itself regularly, and if it doesn't clear and replenish properly, the dirty brain fluid can hang around in there longer than it should. Banana allergy causes a person to look hard as a rock in the muscles, like having all-over body cramp of some type, or trouble trying to relax. The words, "Wow, you look tight, man, maybe you should, like, relax or have a rub down or something," become familiar. As do comments about the buttocks. Overly condensed, rock-hard-looking buttocks is another one. I used to say that my buttocks just didn't jiggle like other people seem to, with my buttocks just don't do that.